Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. And Dragon Link is back. It is back on the menu, baby. I am very excited to be playing this deck again. Of course, as I've mentioned quite a bit in recent videos, this is a deck that actually was playable still, even when Wyverburster was banned. But the card is now finally back at 1. A card that, in my opinion, really did not ever need to be banned, as Dragon Link is a deck that, while it is quite good, I think it was like already in the process of getting kind of power crept, and I think now that we're kind of jumping back into it almost a year later, it's definitely quite noticeable, the difference. I think one of the biggest differences in power that I really notice is, I guess, not even really so much about power, but more about consistency, right? As we've been discussing a lot lately, we are definitely taking a look at how many one-card starters a deck has. That's quite important in this meta, where having one-card starters means that you can afford to play more hand traps or more off-net engine stuff, which in turn, the more hand traps you can play, the better poised you will be, because a lot of decks can play through one hand trap in current Yu-Gi-Oh! So being able to have two is crucial. So we're definitely not lacking in the hand trap department. As you can see, we got Veilers, Maxi, Gamma. I mean, that's what, 7 right there, plus Ash Blossoms is 10, plus Nib is 11, plus Imperm is 12. But if you count the Bestials, which I tend to, that's another 5 for a total of 17. So even in a 46 card deck, which is quite a bit more than, 40, obviously, but it's worth it to play the extra cards to not only have that disruption, but just all the engine that you're going to need as well. So that is kind of the other thing here, right? Like I was talking about, is that the starters for this deck are definitely not as plentiful, at least one-card starters, right? Starliege Safer is going to be your main one. This is a one-card full combo by itself, but you only have the 3 copies as well as the 2 Chaos Space to really reliably search them. And even then, the Chaos Space does require you to have a light or a dark monster. Now, granted, I think except for Ash Blossom, literally all of our, and Maxi, all of our cards are light or dark, all of our monsters. So that's not usually that big of an ask, but that's still only 5 one-card starters. Now, of course, there are other sort of lines that you can do if you open like the Quick Launch and maybe a card to pop, or I guess the Rocket Tracer as well, plus a card to pop. But as far as like full combo goes, and only doing it with one card, really not too many ways to go about it. So I think that's kind of one of the ways in which Dragon Link has been power crept. You are going to pretty often be relying on opening multiple cards to really just make plays, and especially through hand traps as well. I mean, that's an even bigger ask, right? So but that is, of course, why we're also on Call By and Cross Out. That's also why I split the Veilers and Imperm, right? I think a lot of the time, and I might just do this in the future, just run 3 Effect Veiler in Dragon Link, but I like taking one of them out for Imperm. If you're going to be on Cross Out, I feel like you might as well do it. Now here, obviously, the big advantage of Effect Veiler is that it is a light monster, which is going to be highly relevant for banishing stuff out of our graveyard. So there is that to keep in mind, but again, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to play the one Imperm instead of the 3rd Veiler, or even in addition to the 3rd Veiler. You could definitely go above 46 cards to play more engine, as well as more hand traps, of course, as well. Speaking of Bestials as well and hand traps, we have yet another card that has been lifted off the ban list here, the limited list, I suppose, and that is going to be Bestial Jerusalem. Is now at 3. We're not rocking a full playset, just a couple of copies, but I did want a nice little suite of Bestial monsters to be able to search, as well as a playset of Lubellian as well. Just again, having those extra bodies is so helpful so much of the time. And yeah, it's just very nice to have that option, especially with the Bestials in particular, because your main tuner is level 4, right? As well as one of your side tuners, the Rocket Caliber. So being able to go into a Baron de Fleur potentially before the start of your combo lines, or something like Pater or Chaos Angel through an opponent's board or disruption, is often quite good. Yeah, it's funny. It's just like it just kind of feels like coming back to an old friend and hanging out with them again, and nothing's changed. That's really how I feel about playing Dragon Link again now that Wyverburster's at 1. I will say that there are a couple of things about this build that aren't optimized. Namely, the extra deck. I am playing both Delidgerous and Triple Burst, and from what I remember, you only need to play one of these, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head, like, which lines needed which card. I mean, I'm sure I could have figured it out either way, but I decided to throw both of them in, just so I wouldn't have to think as hard about it while I was still getting used to the deck, but you don't need to play both of these. Last I remember, Triple Burst was the way to go, because I think the Lindris plays into more hand traps, and I can't remember off the top of my head how it does that, but you could definitely put another card in the extra deck instead of one of those. I guess if I were going to play another card over one of those, it'd probably just be IP Masquerena. The extra deck for this deck is, like, I'm not going to call it, like, the most wide open, but there are more flex spots than you might realize. Particularly Dark and Access Code aren't, like, super duper necessary, but I like them quite a bit. I think they're quite good, so... even like Baron de Fleur you don't really make all the time. Of course, this card is still far too good to not include. I guess Chaos Angel is pretty flexible. You don't necessarily have to be playing this card, but so yeah, I'd say there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood about 3-ish flex spots in the extra deck there. Everything else I do think is needed. You definitely need it for the combo line, especially with Strikers, Pisty, Romulus, of course, all that fun stuff, right? Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say. I feel like I should have more to say about the deck, because it's Dragon Link and it's back and it's so exciting. But at the same time, again, it really just, it doesn't feel like anything's changed, but in a good way. I do mean that in a good way. That it really just does feel like sliding right back into the format here. I guess I could talk about Dragon Link's place in the meta. I've already kind of alluded to that with its power level. I don't know. I think Dragon Link does kind of have this advantage of not only getting to play hand traps, but also a million bestial monsters without having to sacrifice a lot of non-engine space, right? So that is, of course, very good. And Dragon Link is, of course, if nothing else, a quite resilient combo line, as it often just takes one extender to be able to play through the hand traps. But again, sometimes you actually need that one extender to be able to make plays in general. So it kind of comes down to... I guess really what your opening hand looks like, which, I don't know, again, you feel like that should be a given to any deck in a TCG, right? Like, of course, how well you can play your turnout is going to come down to what you open. But again, all of these other decks in the format that are meta right now are so consistent that that's kind of not a factor for them. Like, it's pretty reasonably likely that they're going to open one of their one-card starters, right? So... you know, opening dead hands where you have to, like, do one summon and maybe set a card and pass is, like, an anomaly, right? But I do notice that it does happen to this deck a little bit more often than others, like Yubel and Fire King Snake Eyes. So, as far as what tier I think Dragon Link's going to be, it kind of feels like a tier 3 deck, I'm not going to lie. It might actually even be upper rogue. Like, this might sound really crazy, but, like, I'm not even sure that Dragon Link is a tiered deck in this meta. Not 100% anyway. But I think I'd be a little surprised if it wasn't at least tier 3. But I also think I'd be quite surprised if it was tier 2 or higher. But I'm willing to be wrong. And of course, the deck I quite like, so very willing to be wrong about that. I don't know, I kind of don't feel the need to break this down, because as always ever, I haven't been doing that lately, but at the same time, it's been a little while since people have seen Dragon Link, so maybe some people aren't as familiar with these cards. So, you know what, for old time's sake, let's go ahead and read all the card names one by one before we start watching these replays. So, we're on 1 Cypher Driver, 2 Effect Veiler, 3 Max C, 2 Cypher Gear Gamma, 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 1 White Dragon Wyver Burster, 2 Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, 3 Rocket Tracer, 1 Rocket Recharger, 3 Starliege Safer, 1 Rocket Caliber, 1 Bestial Magnum Hut, 1 Bestial Saronir, 2 Bestial Drew Swarm, 1 Bestial Baldrake, 1 Absolrato Dragon, 1 Chaos Dragon Levianeer, 3 the Bestial Lubellion, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Chaos Space, 1 Dragon Ravine, 1 Boot Sector Launch, 1 Branded Regained, 2 Quick Launch, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Cross-Out Designator, 1 Infinite Permanence, and then 1 Branded Beast. That's going to be our 46-card main deck. For the extra, we're on 1 Boarload Savage Dragon, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Bestial Dissipator, 1 Chaos Angel, 1 Guard Dragon Pisty, 2 Striker Dragon, 1 Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, 1 Dragoon Knight Romulus, 1 Delindrous Dragon, 1 Dark the Dark Chamber Gloomy, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, 1 Access Code Talker, and finally 1 Boral and Dragon. That's going to do it for our list. Let's see some games. Okay, our first duel is going to be against a mirror match, which is not a surprise. This is the time I'm recording this still the same day that the cards just got you know, unhit. So it definitely makes sense why, you know, there wouldn't be, or there would be a lot of Dragon Link on the ladder. But as you can see, our opponent set one card and then passed, not really able to open a play there, which, as I was just talking about, I think is going to be an issue of Dragon Link. And although it was something that was, of course, you know, present in the deck before, this kind of reliance on either opening one of very few one-card starters or multiple cards, in this, you know, current metagame, that's a lot more of an issue than it was back when Dragon Link was legal the first time. So it's not an issue for us, though. This hand is great. I'm going to open with a Starleash Safred. Opponent's going to call by on the effect, though. So I'm going to use the Crossout Designator here, but it does come with a drawback, as I also have a call by in my hand. So if my opponent has any hand traps, which is decently likely since they didn't make any plays, I'm not going to be able to use the call by on them this turn. We do resolve the Safred, though, adding that Black Dragon Collapse Serpent. And opponent's actually got not a Bestial Monster, but a DD Crow. This is a little bit surprising to me to see it, particularly in a mirror match. Like, I don't think our opponent was maxing out on Bestial Monsters. In fact, I'm very sure they weren't, because that would require running 3 Baldrake and 3 Druiswarm. And I'd pretty much always run a Bestial Monster before playing DD Crow in this deck. The only pro of DD Crow is that it can banish a non-monster out of the graveyard, which I don't really think that's got a huge use in this meta. Of course, there's always stuff like Branded Fusion, but I don't know of any one deck in particular that really, really wants to spell trap card in the graveyard so badly that you, as a Dragon deck, would choose to play DD Crow over a Bestial. So, anyway. DD Crow actually did end up mattering, because we had Ravine plus Nib, so able to use a combination of those two cards to get a light monster back into my graveyard before going for the Collapse Serpent. Gonna Chainlink 1 Striker Dragon, Chainlink 2 Collapse Serpent, because, yep, my opponent was still getting past priority, and I was quite confident that they still had an Ash Blossom in hand. So, by chain blocking the Striker Dragon, we get to search out the Boot Sector launch. We do lose out on the Wyvern Burster, but since we already have the Rocket Tracer in hand, I am a lot more concerned about the Boot Sector launch. Opponent's hand is also dwindling down on cards. They've only got 2 left, so hopefully we should be able to get away without having to deal with any more hand traps. I remember my opponent was still occasionally getting past priority. I remember trying to figure out, like, if they still had a hand trap. So what I did was I Druiswarm to banish their DD Crow, just in case they did. That way I could go for Bestial Dissipator, right? And then if I need to, I can negate like a Nib or something if that's the last card that they're trying to hand trap me, which I kind of think it was just based on how they were playing. I almost went straight into Baron de Fleur, but I did actually take a chance by going into Dissipator first, because I could have, of course, you know, gotten nibbed if that is what they have. But by going into Dissipator, I can bring my own nib back from the Banish Zone. Remember the one that I discarded off of Ravine and then banished for Collapse Serpent. And then from here, I'm just going to link off into SP Little Knight just to get 8k damage on the field. In fact, this is 8100. So that's it. There's going to be lethal right there. Through a few hand traps, as well as setting up the Dissipator to not get hit by whatever our opponent's last card was, if it ended up being relevant. So there you go. Yeah, it was a little tricky there for a second. You know, I mean, it was and wasn't. Of course, our opponent started off with a pretty dead play, so that did make things easier for us. But at the same time, we did have to play through that DD Crow and Ash Blossom without being able to use the call by that was in our hand. So we got a couple more games to check out here. Let's see the next one. Okay, so our next opponent is going to be on a Branded. And funnily enough, they're actually playing one copy of each Wyvern Burster and Collapse Serpent. I don't really know why, but it's cool. It's cool to see people innovate. There's probably a reason, I'm just not aware of it. So, going first, we do have the Chaos Space as well as the Veiler, so I'm going to use those to grab the Collapse Serpent. Opponent's going to Droll us, though. And Droll and Lockbird is a card that is quite good against Dragon Link, as it is very reliant on searching. So I decided to use my Tracer and Ravine to set up an SP, basically going to go SP pass and hope that that plus the Maxi is enough. Now, I could have, I'm pretty sure I could have actually set up the Borreload. Like, I could have used the Collapse Serpent to make Striker. Well, I'd have to get the Striker Dragon into the graveyard. But although I guess I could have done that with the Rocket Tracer and just held on to my Dragon Ravine. Oh, I didn't even think about that until just now. I think that's actually what I should have done. Is special Collapse Serpent, because I have the light still in the yard, right? Yeah. So special the Collapse Serpent, Made Striker Dragon, normal Tracer, Tracer Pop Striker, Special Recharger, make Borreload, keep the Ravine. Yeah, that's definitely how I should have played this. I mean, it's debatable, right? The Omni is obviously better than an SP, but at the same time, the Collapse Serpent is better for comboing on a follow-up than the Ravine would be. So, again, it's like pros and cons to each. Alright, opponent's setting up their graveyard a little bit here before going for the Albaz, pitching Chaos Space. Gonna use the SP, of course, in response to the Albaz. So yeah, that Chaos Space, again, they're on the Ravine Wyver Burster, or not the Ravine, the Collapse Serpent Wyver Burster little package here. Gonna fire off a Maxi in response to this Magnum Hut. They do have the called by for that, so unfortunately that is not going to end up resolving there. They only have one more card in hand though, and I do have the Collapse Serpent, so really hoping that I can just pivot into a lot of plays on my next turn after they hopefully just pass after adding, you know, another Bestial. It'll be a little tricky to play through that Bestial, but... Oh, they're also going to have the Lubellion and the Regained or Lost Regained here, looks like. Oh, except, oops, their last card was Branded Fusion. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that their last two cards in response to my Maxi were Call By and then Branded Fusion. That is quite unlucky on my part. It's definitely not going to be hard for them to find an OTK from this point. They're just going to go for the Albion, and then Albion into Titanic Clad before swinging in here as soon as they're done getting a bunch of advantage. There we go. So yeah, if they didn't have the Branded Fusion, we would have still had to have dealt with the Bestial monster that Magnum Hut searched. But my opponent did slightly misplay by not banishing the Light Monster out of my graveyard, despite knowing that I had a Collapse Serpent in hand. I think they banished my Tracer with the Magnum Hut, if I recall correctly, so we can actually take a look at that here. But, I mean, obviously they still got the W here, but yeah, I think they definitely should have gone after, yeah, they banished my Rocket Tracer. They definitely should have gone after the Veiler. Granted, they might have just known the duel was going to end this turn anyway, because they knew my last card was Collapse Serpent, so it didn't really matter, but, yeah, I mean, either way, so... Alright, we got that game here. We got one more we're going to check out. Let's finish off with that one. And our final opponent is going to be on Yubel, and this is going to be a bit of a back and forth. We've got a 5-turn game here, so definitely a good bit longer than those last two were, those other two. Alright, now here we get to take the first turn, but this is one of those hands that I was talking about where you just don't open plays. And it just does happen a lot more often in Dragon Link than it does with other decks I've played this meta. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be Dragon Link's biggest hurdle moving forward. That doesn't make it a bad deck. I'm certainly not making that claim, but... Okay, so here, this might look a little weird to try to Veiler while the Phantom of Yubel is up, right? But I'm actually fine with the Phantom of Yubel resolving here, because when the Spirit of Yubel activates, I'm going to call by it. And this is actually pretty huge. If you ever have an opportunity to call by your opponent's Spirit of Yubel, you should always take it. This is, like, one of the best ways to stop the Yubel deck from doing their plays, right? Because they will not get the multiple times per turn effect of being able to summon... Yeah, that's actually the first effect. I thought it was the last one. They won't get to be able to do the multiple times per turn effect of summoning the Yubel, which is definitely going to stop them from being able to combo. Not only that, but... Now, even if they use the Samsara Lotus effect, they're not going to be able to go for Spirit of Yubel and also search a card, right? Which makes this Samsara D Lotus not good at all. So much so that my opponent's not even going to activate the effect. They're just going to set a card and then pass. So I'm going to Saronir here. I'm going to banish their Phantom of Yubel just to keep my Blight monsters in the graveyard and then battle over the D Lotus. So we got Maxi, we got Ash Blossom, we do have Saronir plus Branded Beast. So there is that much to consider, right? Opponent was not able to find any more plays either. Going to have to pass right back over to us. And here we have the Wyver Burster, the unbanned card coming in clutch. This is going to represent a full combo for me. And even though I don't currently have a Dark Monster in my graveyard, as I said before, I do have the Branded Beast set. So we are good to go. Going to use the Branded Beast effect here during the main phase. Activate to send off the Saronir and pop the face down. The face down ends up being Escape of the Unchained, which does get to summon the... what's it called? The Sharvara here. But it's not really a big deal, because Sharvara doesn't really have anything to set, because the escape's already popped. So I'm just going to fire off Maxi. I think my opponent actually does Ash here. No, But they did think about it. I remember after I activated the Maxi at this point, my opponent was like, they were holding priority before they decided to let it resolve. So I kind of suspect they might have an Ash Blossom in hand. So I might try to play around that a little bit. In fact, I am going to. I'm going to link off the Wyvern Burster for the Striker Dragon. And this time, I'm going to chain block the opposite way. I'm going to Wyvern Burster 1, Striker Dragon 2. The reason I did it a different way this time is because I don't have a rocket monster in my hand. A rocket tracer especially I don't have right now, right? So if my opponent were to negate if I did the other way around like the last time, and then negated the Wyvern Burster, like it wouldn't matter that I get the boot sector launch. I can't make any more plays. So that's why I chain blocked the other way around. It turned out to be Effect Veiler, not Ash Blossom. So they're going to use that on the Striker Dragon, which is, again, 100% fine. As I said before, I would much rather get the Collapse Serpent search than the Boot Sector search here. Alright, there's the Collapse Serpent. We're going to link that off alongside the Striker Dragon. Going to go for our Dragoonity Knight Romulus. Romulus effect's going to add the Ravine, which we'll then use to... Oh yeah, they conceded right here. Because they realized I could just do a full Dragon Link combo pretty much by this point. It actually wouldn't be full combo, because again, we wouldn't be able to search the Boot Sector launch. Although, shoot, I should have clicked... Did I use my normal summon there? I don't actually think I did, right? No, because I had the Saranir up. Yeah. So, okay, so that was actually fine that we didn't get Boot Sector launch, because I still had my normal summon. So I could have still gone for the Ravine, Pitch Gamma, send Absolrouter, add Tracer, and then normal Tracer, and then just do plays from there. So yeah. We were fine. So there we have it, Dragon Link. I am definitely looking to get a lot more practice with this deck now that it is back on the menu, quote unquote. But yeah, definitely want to also tune up my build a little bit as well. Maybe see, I don't know, there's almost a part of me that wants to try something like Small World to maybe help make the deck a little more consistent, but I don't know how worth it that actually is. So we will definitely head back to the old lab and start cooking a new build there pretty soon. But thanks for watching this video. Super appreciate you as always. Let's go ahead and move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up, and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.